Isn't that great? I just love it.
That was awesome. Wow. Are we gonna have more behind the vocal track?
I think so. Maybe some more dum-dum-dums here and there. It just depends on how much time we have.
Hey guys, I'm sorry I'm late.
Hey guys, we're just getting started.
It's good to see everybody's faces.
How is everyone feeling? Everyone okay?
My brother hasn't been feeling well. He got tested and we were waiting for the results, so he's stuck in his room alone. It just sucks, you know? It's really scary.
Yeah. Holy crap. Like, I'm sorry to hear that. What can I do? Can I send some food or something?
Now we have plenty of food. I just can't sleep. I keep having crazy dreams.
Me too, I've been having the weirdest dreams.
Heard a lot of people are.
Hey Blue, I saw that there are 2 new cases near you.
Yeah, one of them is my friend's stepdad. He's in the hospital. It just seems like it's getting closer and closer.
Is everyone being safe when they go out? Wearing your masks and gloves? Wiping stuff down? Or better yet, not going out at all?
Yeah.
Guys,
Hey!
Hey there, how's it going?
pretty good. Sorry I'm late. We drove in from the beach and I just got back.
Please don't tell me you were in the crowds. I saw in the news it was really crazy.
It was just like a regular day at the beach. It was such a great chance to get out of the house. We got some great sun, met up with some friends.
Yeah, a regular day at the beach for you and a few thousand of your closest German-fested friends. That was not safe.
I know. I was careful, okay?
Are you guys pretty close to off book?
Yeah. I might need a big cheat sheet for that big part at the end, but I'm pretty sure I'm good to go.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and record today. We will consider this the first run through and just try to get through it without stopping. Who are we missing? Blue, purple, green, orange, violet, white, Prince. Where's red?
I
I
haven't
haven't
heard
seen
from
him.
anyone else.
Should I call him?
Yeah, give him a call and see if he answers. If not, we can go ahead and get started if he doesn't come in for a while. I don't want to wait any longer than we have to.
Just went to voicemail.
Okay, let's go ahead without him then. We'll start at the beginning and how far we can get. So everyone but Green, turn off your video and turn them back on when your time comes.
The Red Death had long devastated the country. No pestilence had ever been so fatal or so hideous. Blood was its avatar and its seal. The redness and the horror of blood. There were sharp pains and sudden dizzinesses, and the profuse bleeding at the pores with dissolution. The scarlet stains upon the body and especially upon the face of the victim were the pest ban which shut him out from the aid and from the sympathy of his fellow man, and the whole seizure, progress, and termination of the disease were incidents of half an hour.
But the Prince Prospero was happy and dauntless and sagacious. When his dominions were half depopulated, he summoned to the presence of 1,000 hale and light-hearted friends from among the knights and dames of his court. And with these retired to the deep seclusion of one of his castellated abbeys, this was an extensive and magnificent structure, the creation of the prince's own eccentric yet august taste.
A strong and lofty wall girdled it in. This wall had gates of iron. The courtiers, having entered, brought furnaces and massy hammers and welded the bolts. They resolved to leave means neither of ingress nor egress to the sudden impulses of despair or frenzy from within.
The abbey was amply provisioned. With such precautions, the courtiers might bid defiance to the contagion.
The prince proclaimed the external world can take care of itself. In the meantime, it is folly to grieve or to think. I have provided all the appliances of pleasure. There are buffoons, improvisator, there are ballet dancers, there are musicians, there is beauty, there is wine. All of these and security are within. Without is the Red Death.
It was towards the close of the 5th or 6th month of his seclusion, and while pestilence raged most furiously abroad, that the Prince Prospero entertained his 1,000 friends at a masked ball of the most unusual magnificence.
It was a voluptuous scene, that masquerade, but first let me tell the rooms in which it was held. These were 7 in Imperial Suite.
To the right and left, in the middle of each wall, a tall and narrow Gothic window looked upon a closed corridor which pursued the windows of the suite. These windows were of stained glass whose color varied in accordance with the prevailing hue of the decorations of the chamber into which it opened.
That at the eastern extremity was hung, for example, in blue and vividly blue were its windows.
The second chamber was purple in its ornaments and tapestries, and here was the panels were purple.
The third was green throughout, and so were the casements.
The fourth was furnished and lighted with orange.
The fifth with white.
The sixth with violet.
Still no red? Okay, let's have Prospero read this in blue. Can you read the clock parts for red? I don't want to fix them.
Sure, I've got them here.
Great, thank you. Prince, let's continue.
The seventh apartment was closely shrouded in black velvet tapestries that hung all over the ceiling and down the walls, falling in heavy folds upon a carpet of the same material and hue. But in this chamber only, the color of its windows failed to correspond with the decorations. The panes were scarlet, a deep blood color.
There was no light of any kind emanating from lamp or candle within the suite of chambers. But in the corridors that followed the suite, there stood opposite to each window a heavy tripod, bearing a brazier of fire that projected its rays through the tinted glass so glaringly, illuminated the room, and thus were produced a multitude of gaudy and fantastic appearances. But in the western or black chamber, the effect of the firelight that streamed upon the dark hangings through the blood-tinted panes was ghastly in the extreme, and produced so wild a look upon the countenance of those who entered, there were few of the company bold enough to set foot within the precincts at all.
It was in the apartment also that there stood against the western wall a gigantic clock of ebony. Its pendulum swung to and fro with a dull, heavy, monotonous clang, and when the minute hand made the circuit of the face and the hour was to be stricken, there came from the brazen lungs of the clock a sound which was clear and loud and deep and exceedingly musical, but of so peculiar a note and emphasis that at each lapse of an hour, the musicians of the orchestra were constrained to a pause, momentarily in their performance, to hearken the sound. And thus the waltzers ceased their evolutions, and there was a brief disconcert of the whole gay company. And while the chimes of the clock yet rang, it was observed that the giddiest grew pale, and the more aged and sedate passed their hands over their brows as if confused with reverie or meditation.
But when the echoes had fully ceased, a light laughter at once pervaded the assembly. The musicians looked at each other, smiled at their own nervousness and folly, made whispering vows, each to each other that the next of the chiming of the clock produced them in no similar emotion. And then, after the lapse of 60 minutes, which embraces 3,600 seconds of that time that flies, yet came another chiming of the clock, and then the same disconcert and tremulous and meditation as before.
But in spite of these things, it was a gay and magnificent revel. The tastes of the Duke were peculiar. He had a fine eye for colors and effects. His plans were bold in fury, but his conceptions glow with barbaric lust. There are some who would have thought him mad. His followers felt that he was not. It was necessary to hear and see and touch him to be sure that he was not. He had directed, in great part, the movable embellishments of the 7 chambers, upon occasion of his great fete, and then, It was his own guiding taste which had given character to the masqueraders. Be sure that they were grotesque.
There were delirious fancies such as the madman fashions. There were much of the beautiful, much of the wanton, much of the bizarre, something of the terrible, and not a little of that which might have excited disgust. To and from the seven chambers there stalked, in fact, a multitude of dreams.
And anon there strikes the ebony clock which stands at the hall of the velvet. And then, for a moment, all is still, and all is silent, save the voice of the clock. The dreams are stiff frozen as they stand, but the echoes of the chime die away. They have endured but an instant, and a light, half-subdued laughter floats after them as they depart. And now again the music swells, and the dreams live, and writhe to and fro more merrily than ever, taking hue from the many-tinted windows, through which stream the rays from the tripods.
But to the chamber which lies most westwardly of the seven, there are now none of the maskers who venture, for the night is waning away. And there flows a ruddier light through the blood-colored panes, and the blackness of the sable drapery appalls. And to him whose foot falls upon the sable carpet, there comes from the near clock of ebony a muffled peal more solemnly emphatic than any which reaches their ears, who indulged in the more remote gaieties of the other apartments.
But these other apartments were densely crowded, and in them beat feverishly the heart of life. And the revel went ringly on until at length there commenced the sound of a midnight upon the clock. And then the music ceased, as I have told, and the evolutions of the waltzers were quieted, and there was an uneasy cessation of all things as before. But now there were 12 strokes to be sounded by the bell of the clock, and thus it happened. Perhaps that the more of thought crept, with more time, into the meditations of thoughtful among those who revelled.
And thus, too, it happened, perhaps, that before the last echoes of the last chime had utterly sunk into silence, there were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of the presence of a masked figure which had arrested the attention of no single individual before. And the rumor of this new presence having spread itself whisperingly around, there arose at length from the whole company a buzz or murmur, expression of disapprobation and surprise, and then finally of terror, of horror, and disgust.
In an assembly of phantasms such as I have painted, it may well be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such sensation. In truth, the masquerade license of the night was nearly unlimited, but the figure in question had out-Heroded Herod, and had gone beyond the bounds of even the prince's indefinite decorum. There are chords in the hearts of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion, even with the utterly lost, to whom life and death are equally jest. There are matters of which no jest can be made. The whole company, indeed, seemed now deeply to feel that in the costume and bearing of the stranger, neither wit nor propriety existed.
The figure was tall and gaunt, and shrouded from head to foot in the habiliments of the grave. The mask which concealed the visage was made so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse that the closet scrutiny must have had difficulty in detecting the cheek. And yet all this might have been endured, if not approved, by the mad revelers around. But the mummer had gone so far to assume the type of the Red Death. His vesture was dabbled in blood, and his broad brow, with all the features of the face, was besprinkled with the scarlet horror.
When the eyes of the Prince Prospero fell upon this spectral image, which, with a slow and solemn movement, as to more fully sustain its role, stalked to and fro among the waltzers, he was seen to be convulsed, in the first movement with a strong shudder, either of terror or distaste, but in the next his brow wreathed with rage. Who dares, he demanded hoarsely of the courtiers who stood near him, who dares insult us with this blasphemy mockery? Seize him and unmask him. That way we may know whom we have to hang at sunrise from the battlements.
It was in the eastern or blue chamber in which stood the Prince Prospero as he uttered these words. They rang throughout the 7 rooms loudly and clearly, for the prince was a bold and robust man, and the music had become hushed at the waving of his hand.
It was in the blue room where stood the prince, with a group of pale courtiers by his side. At first, as he spoke, there was a slight rushing movement of this group in the direction of the intruder, who at the moment was also near at hand, and now, with deliberate and stately step, made closer approach to the speaker. But from a certain nameless awe with which the mad assumptions of the mummer had inspired the whole party, there were found none who put forth hand to seize him, so that, unimpeded, he passed within a yard of the prince's person.
And while a vast assembly, as one impulse, shrank from the centers of the room to the walls, he made his way unperceptibly, but with the same solemn and measured steps that had distinguished him from the first, through the blue chamber to the purple, through the purple to the green.
To the green to the orange.
Through this again to the white.
And even thence to the violet.
Ere a decided movement had been made to arrest him.
However, that the Prince Prospero, maddened with rage and the shame of his own momentary cowardice, rushed hurriedly through the 6 chambers, while none followed him on a deadly account of terror that is seized upon all. He bore aloft a drawn dagger, and had approached, in rapid impetuosity, to within 3 or 4 feet of the retreating figure, when the latter, having attained the extremity of the velvet apartment, turned suddenly and confronted his pursuer.
There was a sharp cry, and the dagger dropped gleaming upon the sable carpet, upon which instantly afterwards fell prostrate in death Prince Prospero.
Prince, you okay? Red, you scared the crap out of me. We'll go back and do your scenes in a minute. Hey, Prince, can you hear me? Okay, Miss Method. Blue, let's keep going.
Then, summoning the wild courage of despair, a throng of revelers at once threw themselves into the black apartment.
And seizing the mummer, whose tall figure stood erect and motionless in the shadow of the ebony clock, gasped in unutterable horror at finding the grave cerements in the corpse-like mask, which they handled with so violently a rudeness, untenanted by any tangible form.
And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He came like a thief in the night.
And one by one, the revelers in the blood-bedewed halls of their revel. What the?
And died each in the despairing posture of his fall, and the life of the ebony clock went out with the last of the gay, and the flames of the tripods expired.
Okay, guys, hang on a second here. Guys, can anyone hear me?
Green, what happened, everybody?
Did-
Why are they
Did you see?
going?
Did you see that? There was someone behind them.
Can you call blue? I'll call white. Green? Green? Can you hear me?